Is it, this is a tough one to put into words, but what I'm trying to get at here is it easier to perform as a musical couple where the tendency is to work from one point of view, or do you find that you bring two totally different sort of points of view together to a performance? How does that dynamic work?
That sort of shifts. I mean, just in defense of myself, Tim's comment earlier about how I said he couldn't count. Well, I mean, we're from very different backgrounds. I was trained in the United States, and you know, for example, went to Tanglewood for 3 summers, where you're thrown just piles and piles of new music, just mountains of it. So you feel like you're going through boot camp, and it's all very avant-garde, and some of it really complicated rhythmically. And Tim's background, he was in Germany for 11 years. You know, it's much more traditional, and they really study the score in incredible detail that, you know, we don't do actually here in North America the same amount. So, I mean, he brought something completely different to the ensemble. And his approach really definitely resonated with me, for sure. But, you know, we have totally different backgrounds, but I think there is a common sort of instinct, musical instinct between us. So it sort of is a bit of both, I guess, is what I'm saying. This two points of views and one point of view. It's hard to exactly explain it.
We rehearse a lot, only because the only way it's going to work is if there's an element of spontaneity. You can't, you know, both decide what you're going to do and then get together for rehearsal and fight over it. It's just not going to work. And that's how some groups work. But it has to happen. You have to follow each other and kind of feel what the other person is going to do. And you can't talk about that either, and you can't prepare for that. So all you can do is just rehearse. And we've been doing that for, you know, 14 years or so. We've gotten good at reading each other really, really well. And then if there's something that really feels uncomfortable that the other person, it doesn't happen actually very often, then we can stop and discuss it, I guess you could say. But yeah, you know, coming from my background where it was, you really had to know in your mind what you wanted to do even before you did it. Well, that doesn't work in a situation like this at all. It has to really happen in the moment.
Does it ever allow you to have alternate points of view that, you know, you kind of try out on different circumstances?
Well, I think what happens is you become, if you can really nail down this process of spontaneity and following, you don't really want to have, you know, you don't really want to be so specific. You don't really want to say, well, now at bar 25 we're going to do this. You want to see how you get to bar 25. And sometimes it'll be this way, and sometimes it'll be that way. But if your communication is really good and you've been working together and you're really reading each other really well, it doesn't make any difference what happens at bar 25, if that's the way you wanted or not, because the pathway to getting there, you know, as two artists playing together, just that pathway is so rewarding. I don't know how else to describe it, I think.
Yeah, no, you're doing it very well.
The other thing we do a lot is record ourselves, so that almost always settles any question about how we should maybe do certain things. I mean, and we always agree once we hear the recording of, oh my gosh, well we definitely have to do it this way. And so that's sort of our mediator is the tape recorder.
It's interesting you say that. I remember years ago there was a Canadian string quartet who are no longer around, but they were rather argumentative. And the way they solved their arguments, which were frequent and impassioned, you know, was with a cassette recorder. And very interesting to see that in action. Now, you, speaking of recording, you are in the process of recording the Beethoven sonatas, I believe?
That's right.
How's that going? Whereabouts are you on this long journey?
We're 1/3 through, yeah. We just started in June, and we did 4 of the smaller ones. There's 10 total to do. And so it's going to take about 2 years. It's a huge, huge project, and it's really, really exciting and fulfilling, but daunting at the same time.
Do you play these in recital as a series? You know,
we have done that. We have done that, but I mean, we play them a lot. I think it's probably the repertoire we do the most, really. And one year we did them all as a big series, but. That's actually not as fun as doing them. They're such great pieces of music that if you scrunch them all together, It's like eating too much chocolate cake or something like that. It's nice to spread it out, and so you can enjoy them just sort of a bit more instead of scrunching them all together and doing them in one big blast.
It's obviously one of the landmarks of your repertory, if not the landmark. What else sort of compares or comes close?
Well, there's many other things that come close, but I just wanted to mention that we had a great piece written for us by Murray Schafer, and that was one thing when we first started out. The very first year we said, wouldn't it be great if someday Murray Schafer would write us a piece? And then 10 years later it actually happened, and that's what won the Juno for Best Composition last year. So we were pretty excited about that. But we often play a recital with that piece on there, as well as Brahms and Beethoven, or Mozart and Beethoven. And I tell you, the audiences afterwards, all they want to talk about is how great the Schafer is. I mean, right next to all those other great composers. So that's
Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting.
That piece will stand
Makes
the test of time.
A huge reaction from people. Yeah. You answer the original question.
Well, we love the Brahms. I guess right next to Beethoven, the composer, I think, the two composers we love to play the most, I think, are probably Schubert and Bartók, I would think. And then Mozart. The Mozart are a bit tricky for us because Mozart was a bit of a dilemma. He was living in Salzburg, and every so often a famous violinist would come to town to give a concert, and Mozart would write a sonata. Well, sometimes the violinist was amazing, and he'd write quite a substantial violin part, like the B-flat major, and sometimes she was just downright awful, and it's just pretty much, quarter note, whole notes for and Nancy doesn't like to play those too much. So and there's this just phenomenal piano part going on, and then Nancy's just sort of like this. And then I don't have to count, you see, and this is... and then we've started these Bach sonatas. The thing with the Bach is that they were originally written for harpsichord, and I've been saying to Nancy for a long time, we should really try. We should really, really try, because they're such beautiful, beautiful pieces of music. So we've started looking into those.
That's nice. In 2005, you did a big tour. You went to China.
Oh, that's right.
Now, was that the most ambitious tour you've done, do you think? Or does it rank up there?
That was the most scary.
I mean ambitious in the widest sense. Yeah.
Oh, boy. We went to Beijing and Szechuan and Guangzhou and Zuni and Guiyang and Dongguan. And
were the audiences what you'd anticipated, or were there any surprises there?
Oh, there were lots of surprises. I mean, it's kind of neat, except for Beijing, where it was more what we would expect here in the West. The Chinese bring all their families, their children, and the children kind of run around. They'll run right up to the front, and they'll also have their cell phones held up through the whole concert so people back home can be listening to the concert. And afterwards, you're just swarmed with children coming for autographs, and the whole backstage scene was very, very different. Usually here, if you have a dressing room, people realize you want to have your private time and pull yourself together and all of that. And in China, there's none of that sort of sense of individuality. They would assume that you want all the VIPs to come backstage and be mulling around and chatting and smoking and so it's just a totally you just get used to sort of going with the flow. It's never what you expect it to be. The schedule, it would say on our itinerary that we were going to some enormous city, and then they'd say, oh no, that one's been canceled. Actually, the party needs that room for a big meeting, so we're gonna be sending you now to this enormous city of 10 million, and so you have no control. You just, okay, yep, off we go, a totally different route. But fortunately, we had a translator with us the whole time and a tour manager, so it would be impossible to do that tour without someone who speaks Mandarin
So they
really
don't behave like that back in Newfoundland with the cell phones and...
No, not exactly.
Well, you've got the Beethoven to sort of sink your teeth into in the next 2 years. Any other sort of big plans on the horizon? Or?
That's our sort of all-consuming thing for
Yeah.
the next 2 years. I can't even really think past that point at this, because we just started it, so it feels like a big. We have two new commissions that we're playing in Ottawa in a couple weeks. So 2 new pieces that have been written for us, and one of which is sort of biographical. We sat down with this composer and ended up having a long meal and talking all about how we met and how we fell in love, and the whole piece is about that. It's called Cour à Cour. So that's kind of neat to have a piece that's about you, written for you.
Yeah, who's that by?
That's by Alice Ho. It's a very beautiful piece.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, you've got a brief visit here to Paris Sound, just a few days, I think. I do hope you get a chance to enjoy Georgian Bay.
Oh, thank you.
Your website is duoconcertante.com. We're the Festival of the Sound.ca, and I'd like to thank you both for joining me today for this conversation.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.